All right, so we've left the Civil War, we left the era of Reconstruction, and we're moving into, we saw the growth of railroads and the expansion further out west and the impact it had on the natives. We're moving into the Gilded Age. This is a time period where you're going to see exponential growth of industries and corporations, okay? And so Standard 11A asks you to explain the effects of the railroads on other industries. So we're not just talking about the effect of the growth of railroads on people. Now we're looking at industry itself, specifically steel and oil industry. Okay. Let's start here, after the Civil War. So just kind of want to put this into perspective and give you some context or background about this. The railroad industry is going to be impacted the most. Why? Because we're expanding out west, and in order to do that, we've got to build an infrastructure that enables effective and efficient expansion. Okay, the railroad industry, in around 1865, so at the end of the Civil War, we had 35,000 miles of track, most of it on the East Coast. Okay, 35,000 miles now. You get 35 years later in the 1900s, you have 193,000 miles of track. Okay, so you can see how fast people are moving west, how fast the railroads are growing. Now think about this for a second. If the railroads are growing and we're laying more track, we're going to need more railroad cars. We're going to need more people to manage them. We're going to need more of those raw materials that it takes to create those railroads. So that's something to consider, okay? Now, keep in mind while you're watching these videos and going through these PowerPoints, if it's in yellow, those are your notes to take. That doesn't mean you don't take any of the other notes that are listed, but that's specifically what you'll need to know. And I'm not giving you graphic organizers this time. You've seen how to make them, what they look like. Okay, but anything in yellow specifically you need to write down. Anything in pink are your vocabulary words, all right? So what do the railroads actually do for people? What impact do they have on the bigger picture? Well, one, it's going to connect regions of the United States together, so east to west and everything in between. It's going to be an efficient way to transport goods. So we're not just relying on rivers now or wagons and carts. Like now we're relying on railroads. It can move them faster, quicker, so they get across the country faster. Okay, less time to ship. It also is going to lead to a creation of a national market. So you're not just marketing your goods and services to people on the East Coast and people right in your own town. People on the West Coast can get your products and goods too, so you want to market to them as well. So now you're reaching across the country to sell your goods. It's going to lead to mass production and mass distribution of items. So again, if you're marketing your goods and products to more people, you're going to have to make more of your product, and you're going to have to find a more efficient and effective way to make a lot more of your product. So instead of making, 20 guns in a year for your town, now you're making hundreds or thousands of them to get to other parts of the country. Okay, so you're going to have to figure out a way to, one, get those raw materials faster and in bigger quantities, and you're going to figure out how to make your goods faster and in bigger quantities, which is going to lead to the birth of corporations. Okay, corporations are going to start buying up those small-time businesses that don't make it. Okay, so let's jump into the railroad industry itself. The steel industry to begin with. And like we said, how does the railroad industry impact specific industries like steel and oil? So let's look at steel. Railroad tracks are made out of steel, and there's parts of the railroad cars that are made out of steel, and the wheels and things like that. So, if railroad is expanding and you're making more, you're laying down more track and you're building more cars, you need more steel. So not only do you need more steel, you need more, a more effective or efficient way to process the steel. So, one, railroad tracks are made out of steel, so you need more steel just to lay the tracks. Steel suppliers are going to develop low-cost methods for producing the steel itself, so that they can produce more of it faster and they don't decrease the integrity of the product, so that the steel is still good and solid for them to use. This is where Andrew Carnegie comes in. That's a name you've got to know. We'll get to him in a little bit later, but Andrew Carnegie is somebody that you've got to know. He's going to build his corporation. It's going to be Carnegie Steel, and he's going to buy up other steel businesses that don't quite cut it so that he can kind of add to his own. The other way that the railroad affects industry is the oil industry specifically. When you drill for oil, you have to drill in remote regions because that's where a lot of the oil or the fossil fuel is located. How do you get the oil from where you drilled it from out of the ground to the towns and the cities that are going to use it? Well, you have to transport it. Well, transporting it by wagon or cart is really not effective or efficient. It's not cost effective either. But railroads are going to make transporting the oil a lot cheaper. Okay, not just transportation being cheaper for other products, but oil specifically. And oil is a very high demand source for fuel during this time. Okay, this is going to be John D. Rockefeller's company. Okay, so we'll get to them, like I said, a little bit later, so you're writing their names down, but be writing the stuff in yellow down. All right. All right, so the industries that are impacted, well, we said the steel company and the oil industry, but the Pullman sleeping car, that's kind of a company that makes a car on a railroad. You can see it down here at the bottom. For long-distance travelers. It is exactly what it says it is in its name. It's a sleeping car. You can sleep there. You can rest there. You can travel for days or a week by living in this little car, kind of like a moving hotel room, right? The glass industry is going to be impacted because you have to make glass for the windows on the cars. Cloth for the railroad seats themselves, and wood for the railroad car construction, like the outside of the car. It's not all steel, it's made out of wood. So you're going to have land where you have forests and trees that you can cut down. You're going to have to grow cotton and other materials to make the seats. You're going to have glass created to do those. So a lot of industries are impacted. So just kind of think about that when a new product comes along. When industries are impacted, let's say Chick-fil-A comes along. Well, they sell chicken, right? So you're going to have to find a source where you can purchase more chicken on a grand scale. You're going to have to process the chicken. You're going to have to find a way to cook it and to present it to your customers, which means you're going to have buildings to sell it in. That's kind of, the thought process when thinking about the impact of the railroads. How is it going to change your businesses? Well, one, it's going to change how businesses are organized. You're not going to have just your small-time business that makes a product from start to finish. You're going to have different businesses that make windows, businesses that make your railroad car seats, businesses that will make the railroad cars themselves or the wheels or the tracks. And then you're going to have businesses that put it all together. So businesses are going to be organized a lot differently. You're going to start to see a division in that labor where you're building different pieces of the product and then you bring it all together. Capital investment, capital is money, and you need to invest your money in these businesses because when you're building these businesses on such a big scale, these big corporations, you need a lot more money. You need more investors. So you're going to get private investors, but you're also going to get money from the government. That's this word subsidies. The government's going to give you a subsidy or a little bit of money to kind of supplement what you need to get your business up and running and going. You need huge numbers of people, and you have to train them on how to operate the cars or deal with your customers in the car. So you need large trained staffs. Think about an amusement park. You need staff to run the ride. You need staff to sell the food. You need staff to be out and about helping customers and answering guest questions, people taking tickets. So it's the same with any other business that deals with customers. You need those trained staff members. Okay, so that's going to be kind of a new thing. And then your smaller businesses are going to get absorbed by your corporations, okay, because they're not going to be able to compete with them. So we're going to stop there, all right, and then you'll go to the next slide.